The scent of roasted turkey filled the air as I pulled into my son's driveway. My heart beat with that familiar mix of hope and worry, the same feeling I always had before visiting David and Rebecca. 15 years into their marriage, I still found myself wondering, maybe this time it'll be different. I smoothed my navy blue dress, took a deep breath, and picked up the homemade pumpkin pie, David's favorite since he was little. A small tradition I kept to feel close to him, even though that closeness had been fading year by year. The door opened before I could even ring the bell. "Hi, Mom," David said with a polite smile, giving me a quick hug. "Glad you could make it." "Glad you could make it." It sounded practiced, polite, not warm. "Thank you for inviting me, dear," I replied, pretending not to notice. I handed him the pie. He hesitated, then said, "Rebecca already made dessert, but I'm sure we can serve both." I smiled, knowing exactly what that meant. Rebecca's dishes always took center stage, and mine rarely made it out of the kitchen. Still, I said nothing. After 10 years of widowhood, I'd mastered the art of quiet endurance. Inside, the house was full. Rebecca's parents, her brother and his wife, some friends I didn't know. My grandkids, Emma and Noah, sat in a corner with their tablets, lost in their own world. "Grandma!" Noah finally looked up and ran to hug me. His small arms around me were the first real warmth I'd felt all evening. Then Rebecca appeared, flawless as ever in her designer dress, every strand of hair in place. She smiled, though her eyes stayed cold. "Martha, you're here," she said, as if I had shown up uninvited. "Thank you for having me, Rebecca," I said, offering her a bottle of wine. "I hope you'll like it." She looked at the label and said lightly, "Interesting choice. I'll save it for a special occasion." Translation: It would never be opened. I tried to chat with Emma, but she barely glanced up. Lately, both kids had seemed more distant, like someone had been quietly building walls between us. "Dinner's almost ready," Rebecca announced. "Let's all take our seats." The table was stunning. Gold napkin rings, crystal glasses, candles glowing just right. Rebecca always knew how to impress. My seat was at the far end, away from David and the kids. Rebecca stayed standing, glass in hand, her voice smooth and confident. "Before we begin, I just want to thank everyone for being here this Thanksgiving. It's wonderful to be surrounded by people we love." I smiled politely, feeling invisible. "And for those who are meeting our family for the first time," she continued, turning toward a couple I didn't recognize, "let me introduce everyone." She went around the table, praising each person, her parents, her brother, their friends. Then her eyes landed on me. There was a pause, a deliberate one. "And this," she said finally, her lips curling into a polite smile, "is Martha, the unbearable mother-in-law." The room froze. Every head turned toward me. I felt my heart drop, the air leaving my lungs. David shifted uncomfortably. "Rebecca," he murmured, but didn't defend me, didn't correct her, just stared at his plate, and in that moment, sitting there under the soft glow of candles, surrounded by laughter that wasn't meant for me, something inside me quietly snapped. It wasn't just this moment. It was years of being left out of family photos, of accidental forgotten invites, of watching my grandkids grow up through someone else's posts. Rebecca laughed lightly. "Oh, come on, it's just a joke. Martha knows I adore her." I forced a smile. I'd done it 1,000 times. I smiled to keep the peace, to protect my son, to avoid being exactly what she claimed I was. "Of course," I said softly, my voice steadier than I felt. "Lovely as always, Rebecca." Dinner went on, filled with awkward small talk and polite laughter. I barely touched my food. My throat was tight, my hands trembling in my lap, and yet, as I watched Rebecca's perfect performance at the head of the table, an idea began to take shape. Quiet at first, but sharp and clear. She had called me unbearable, but by the time dessert was served, she would learn the meaning of unforgettable. As everyone laughed and chatted around the table, something inside me changed. The Martha who smiled through insults and accepted scraps of affection. She quietly disappeared that night. In her place, someone new began to rise, someone who refused to be invisible. I didn't yet know how I'd do it, but as I sat there, humiliated in front of family and strangers alike, I made a silent vow. This would not be the end of my story. When dinner finally ended, I stood, smiled, and offered my polite goodbyes, the same kind of mechanical hugs they'd grown used to. No one could have guessed that behind my calm smile, a storm was already forming. Rebecca had underestimated me for the very last time. This so-called unbearable mother-in-law was about to deliver a lesson no one in that house would ever forget. The drive home blurred into streaks of headlights and darkness. Tears stung my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. As the miles rolled by, memories flooded back, sharp, vivid, impossible to ignore. It hadn't always been like this. When David first brought Rebecca home 18 years ago, she was all warmth and charm. "I've heard so much about you, Mrs. Wilson," she had said with that bright, perfect smile. "David adores you." And I had believed her. After losing my husband, Richard, to illness, David was my whole world. The idea of gaining a daughter through marriage had filled me with hope. But the change was slow, so slow I barely noticed it happening. First came the tiny remarks. "Oh, is that what you're wearing to the restaurant?" Or, "David said you used to make your meatloaf differently." Little barbs hidden behind sweetness. Then came the distance. Weekend visits turned into once a month, then only on holidays. Phone calls grew shorter, and every time I tried to reach out, David was suddenly too busy. By the time I pulled into my driveway, my home was dark and silent. I sank onto the couch without turning on the lights. Around me, the framed photos told the story of another lifetime: David's graduation, family trips, Richard and me on our 30th anniversary. My favorite was one from the day Emma was born, me holding my tiny granddaughter, David's arm around my shoulders. We were all smiling, radiant with joy. Just 2 weeks after that photo was taken, the first cracks appeared. "Mom, Rebecca thinks it's best if you don't visit for a while. The baby needs a routine," David had said, gentle but firm. When I was finally allowed to visit again, Rebecca's mother had already taken the guest room. "Helping out indefinitely," David had explained. That was the moment I started losing my place in their world. I opened my phone and scrolled through David's social media. There they were, smiling faces at the zoo, at the beach, at family gatherings I hadn't even known about. One post hit me like a punch. "Family reunion weekend." Rebecca's entire extended family was there. I hadn't even received a message. Then came the moment that truly broke me. When Noah started school, I offered to help with pickups like any grandmother would. "That's sweet, Martha," Rebecca had said, "but we've got it covered. The schedule's just, too complicated to explain." Too complicated? For me? As if I couldn't understand something as simple as my own grandchildren's routines. I set my phone down and let the tears come, not just for tonight's humiliation, but for all the quiet years of being slowly erased, the canceled plans, the accidental forgotten invitations, the way Rebecca would interrupt me mid-sentence or steer conversations away whenever I tried to talk to my family. Somewhere along the line, I had turned into a ghost, present but unseen. I walked to my desk and opened the drawer where I kept my small leather journal. Inside were notes I'd written over the years, though I'd never really admitted why. Dates of canceled visits, screenshots of gatherings I wasn't told about, small moments when Rebecca's words had cut a little too deep. It wasn't imagination, it was a pattern. There was the time I'd brought homemade cookies for the kids, only for Rebecca to toss them away when she thought I wasn't looking. "Too much sugar," she'd said, before serving store-bought cupcakes an hour later. Or last Christmas, when my gifts for the children, accidentally, went unopened until after I'd left. Even Emma's family tree project at school had reduced me to a tiny circle labeled only as Grandma W. And through it all, David, my own son, had changed. The man who used to call me every week could no longer meet my eyes when his wife mocked me at the table. That's when it hit me. I had allowed this to happen. By smiling through the pain, by pretending everything was fine, I had taught them that I would always endure it, that they could treat me any way they wanted, and I would still show up, grateful for scraps of affection. My phone buzzed, snapping me out of thought. A message from my friend Elaine. How was Thanksgiving? I stared at the screen for a long time. How could I even begin to explain? Then I made a decision. Can we meet for coffee tomorrow? I typed back. I need your advice. For the first time in years, I wasn't going to hide behind polite smiles. For the first time, I was ready to take back control of my life. That night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, one thing was certain. I was done quietly accepting my assigned role as the unwanted mother-in-law. The Martha who left that Thanksgiving table was not the same woman who'd arrived with a pumpkin pie and a fragile hope for belonging. Rebecca wanted an unbearable mother-in-law? Maybe it was time to show her what that really meant. She actually introduced you that way? In front of everyone? Elaine's voice rose in disbelief, drawing curious looks from nearby tables at the little cafe where we sat. I nodded, wrapping my hands around my coffee cup. And David just sat there, I added quietly. He didn't say a word. Elaine had been my friend for over 30 years. We'd taught together at the same elementary school, shared the loss of our husbands, and countless coffee chats like this one. Unlike me, Elaine had a daughter-in-law who adored her. Martha, she said firmly, leaning closer, this isn't just rudeness, it's emotional mistreatment. You've mentioned small things before, but hearing it all together... She shook her head. Why have you put up with it for so long? The question lingered in the air. Outside, soft snow had begun to fall, dusting the sidewalk in white. Fear, I admitted at last. Fear of losing David completely. Fear of never seeing my grandchildren again. Elaine's eyes softened. And how often do you see them now? The truth stung. Holidays. Sometimes not even then. They went to Disney World last spring. I saw it online. Emma had a dance recital I wasn't told about. Noah lost his first tooth. I found out from a post. Elaine reached across the table and squeezed my hand. So you're already losing them. The words hit deep. Yes, I whispered. Then what do you really have left to lose by standing up for yourself? Nothing. The answer came like a spark, terrifying, but freeing. As I drove home, Elaine's words echoed in my mind. For years I'd believed that keeping the peace, no matter how painful, was the only way to stay close to my family. But that peace had cost me everything. When I reached home, I stood before the hallway mirror and really looked at myself, maybe for the first time in years. When had my shoulders started to slump? When had I chosen dull colors just to blend in? When had I begun to see myself through Rebecca's cold eyes? The phone rang, breaking the silence. David's name lit up the screen. Mom, he began, his tone careful. Rebecca wanted me to call. She thinks you might have misunderstood her joke yesterday. Not an apology, not even close. Does she? I asked calmly. You know how she is, he said. Her sense of humor can be different. Anyway, she feels bad if you took it the wrong way. Again, not sorry for what she said, only sorry if I was offended. In the past, I would have rushed to ease his guilt. I would have said, oh, it's fine, don't worry about it. The words almost slipped out of habit. Instead, I took a slow breath. David, I said, steady and clear, how exactly should I have taken being called unbearable in front of your entire family and friends? Silence. She didn't mean it like that, he muttered finally. How did she mean it then? More silence. Mom, why are you making this difficult? It was just a joke. There it was. I was the problem. I was making it difficult by refusing to laugh at my own humiliation. Tell me something, I said quietly. Would you ever introduce Rebecca's mother that way? And would Rebecca laugh if you did? He hesitated. That's different. Why? He had no answer. I took another breath. I've been thinking, David, maybe we should pause our usual Christmas routine this year. What do you mean? He sounded genuinely confused. The idea that I might draw a boundary had never even crossed his mind. Every year, I come over with gifts, we have dinner. but I think I need some time to myself this Christmas." The words felt foreign and perfect. "But the kids are expecting you. It's tradition," he protested. Was it really tradition? Or just a performance, a staged version of family harmony that left me emptier each time? "I'm sure you'll make it wonderful for them," I said softly. "Give them my love." "Mom." "I need to go now, David. I'll call you after the holidays." And I hung up before he could say another word. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. For the first time in years, I had spoken the truth without apologizing for it. That evening, I did something I hadn't done in ages. I called my old colleague, Susan, and made dinner plans. Then I sent an email to the local community center asking about volunteer work. Finally, I pulled out my watercolor set, dusty, forgotten, and placed it on the dining table. My life had become a waiting room, revolving around David's family, waiting for invitations that never came, keeping my calendar open just in case, making myself smaller in hopes of being needed. No more. Before going to bed, I sent one last message to David. "I've thought about our conversation. I love you and the children deeply, but I can no longer accept being treated as an afterthought. When you're ready to talk honestly, I'm here." He didn't respond, but for the first time in years, I slept peacefully, because I had finally chosen myself. That night, I slept better than I had in years. The woman who woke the next morning stood a little taller. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time I truly understood that my dignity was worth protecting, and I was just getting started. Christmas came and went. No phone calls from David, only a short text on Christmas morning, "Merry Christmas, Mom." The silence hurt, but it also revealed the truth. I had drawn one boundary, and my son had retreated completely. January arrived, wrapped in snow, and something new: purpose. I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Mitchell, a calm woman in her 50s who specialized in family relationships. "What you're describing," she said during our third session, "is a classic control pattern. Your daughter-in-law feels threatened by your bond with your son and grandchildren, so she's been quietly pushing you to the edges." "But why?" I asked. "I've never interfered. I've done everything to make peace." "That's exactly why," Dr. Mitchell said gently. "When you keep accommodating unfair behavior, it teaches the other person that it's acceptable. You've been proving your worth by being endlessly patient. But to someone like Rebecca, patience looks like weakness." The word stung, but I knew she was right. "What can I do?" I asked. "I don't want to lose my family forever." She folded her hands. "You might need to be ready for things to get harder before they get better. Changing old patterns always brings resistance, but the way things are now, Martha, you're slowly disappearing from your own family." Her words echoed in my mind long after I left her office. Then came February, and with it, an unexpected call. "Grandma?" It was Emma, my sweet 12-year-old granddaughter. Her voice was small, hesitant. "Are you mad at us?" My heart tightened. "Of course not, sweetheart. I could never be mad at you." "Then why didn't you come for Christmas? Dad said you were busy." "But you've never been busy before." So that was the story. David had told her I'd chosen not to be there. "I just needed some time to think," I said carefully. "Sometimes adults need a little space to figure things out." "Oh." She hesitated. "Mom says you're being dramatic." Of course she did. "Emma," I asked gently, "do you remember what your mom called me at Thanksgiving?" Another pause. "The unbearable mother-in-law," she whispered. "She says stuff like that a lot when you're not around." It shouldn't have surprised me, but it still hurt. "How did that make you feel when she said it?" "Bad," Emma admitted. "Noah cried later. He said it was mean." My sweet Noah. Even he had seen the cruelty I'd spent years pretending not to notice. "It hurt my feelings too," I told her softly. "And when someone hurts our feelings, sometimes we need time to heal." There was silence. Then her bright little voice again. "Will you come see us soon, Grandma? I got an A on my science project." I smiled. I'd love to hear all about it. How about ice cream this weekend? Just you and me. After we hung up, I called David, straight to voicemail. David, I said, keeping my tone calm. Emma called me. She'd like to meet for ice cream this Saturday. I'd like your permission to take her for an hour. Please let me know. An hour later, his reply came. Fine, 2 p.m., 1 hour, 1 hour, granted like a favor. Still, it was something. That Saturday, Emma and I sat across from each other in a cozy ice cream shop, sunlight catching the rainbow sprinkles on her cone. I didn't ask questions about home, and I didn't mention Rebecca. I just listened as she excitedly explained her science project on ecosystems. Mom didn't help, she said proudly. She said it was too messy. Well, I think it sounds amazing, I told her. I always loved science projects when I was teaching. Her eyes widened. You were a teacher? Mom said you just stayed home. I smiled gently. No, sweetheart. I taught elementary school for 30 years, 3rd grade. Your dad used to come to my classroom after school. He helped feed the class guinea pig. Emma giggled. Dad's scared of hamsters. He makes Mom clean the cage. That small laugh, that real connection, meant more than she'd ever know. When our hour was nearly over, Emma looked up. Can we do this again, Grandma? I'd like that very much, I said, hugging her tightly. Goodbye, sweetheart. David was waiting in the parking lot, checking his watch. He nodded curtly as Emma ran up to him, chattering about our afternoon. Emma, get in the car, please, he said sharply. When she was inside, he turned to me. Mom, what are you doing? Having ice cream with my granddaughter? I replied evenly. You know what I mean, he said. First the skipped Christmas, now these one-on-one visits. Rebecca thinks you're trying to cause division. I met his gaze, calm but firm. I'm doing the opposite, David. I'm trying to save my relationship with my family in a way that doesn't destroy my self-respect. By refusing Christmas? I didn't refuse you, I said quietly. I declined one invitation after being publicly humiliated at the last family gathering. He looked away. She apologized for that. No, she didn't, I corrected. She said I misunderstood her joke. That's not an apology. David sighed, rubbing his forehead, the same gesture he used to make when he was a teenager frustrated with his homework. What do you want from me, Mom? It was the most honest question he'd asked in years. I want to be treated with respect, I said softly, and I want to be part of my grandchildren's lives, not out of obligation, but out of love. I want you to stop letting your wife belittle me. David's jaw tightened. You don't understand what it's like living with Rebecca. You're right, I said quietly. I don't. But I do understand what it feels like to be slowly erased from my own son's life, and I won't accept that anymore. As I drove home, a realization settled in. This wasn't just about standing up to Rebecca. It was about helping David see what had really happened, to our relationship, and to him. The path ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in years, I wasn't just enduring pain. I was fighting for something real. March brought unexpected change. After my ice cream outing with Emma, little messages began to appear on my phone, photos of school projects, questions about recipes, short updates about her day. Each one was a tiny bridge, rebuilt message by message. When Noah's birthday came in late March, I mailed him a model rocket kit, something we could build together one day if I was ever invited to visit again. There was no acknowledgement from David or Rebecca, but a few days later, Emma secretly sent me a picture. Noah, grinning ear to ear, holding the rocket. He loves it, her text said. Mom said it was too complicated, but Dad said they'd work on it. A small victory, but a victory nonetheless. For once, David had contradicted Rebecca. My weekly sessions with Dr. Mitchell continued. You're making progress, she told me. But remember, your goal isn't to defeat Rebecca, it's to rebuild healthy connections. I nodded, though part of me still dreamed of seeing Rebecca finally face the consequences of her cruelty. Dr. Mitchell smiled knowingly. Martha, vindication might feel satisfying for a moment, but it won't heal your family. Focus on what you want to restore, not what you want to punish. Her words stayed with me. April arrived with an unexpected surprise, an invitation. Easter dinner. I stared at the message for a long time, unsure whether to accept. Then I remembered what Dr. Mitchell had said about cautious optimism and emotional preparation. So I went, calm, steady, ready. From the moment I walked in, something felt different. David greeted me with a genuine smile and a warm hug. The children rushed to me, chattering about school and Noah's rocket. Rebecca was civil, distant but polite. No snide remarks, no icy tone. And as dinner went on, I noticed something remarkable. Every time Rebecca began to make a subtle jab, David gently redirected the conversation. He was watching, observing, noticing. Something in him had shifted. After dessert, while Rebecca cleared the dishes, David asked the kids to show me their new backyard playset. Outside in the cool spring air, he lowered his voice. "Mom, can we talk later this week? Just us?" My heart skipped. "Of course," I said softly. 3 days later, we met at a small cafe halfway between our homes. David looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, his expression heavy with guilt. "I owe you an apology," he said quietly, staring into his coffee. "A big one." I waited, giving him space. "After Thanksgiving, and then Christmas. I was angry with you," he admitted. "I thought you were being difficult, but then I started paying attention. Really paying attention." He looked up, his eyes filled with remorse. "I watched how Rebecca talks about you when you're not around, how she tells the kids you're too busy to visit when I know she's canceled your plans, how she hides your gifts or forgets to tell me when you've called." The validation hit me like a wave. After years of being made to question my own memory, someone was finally confirming what I'd always known. David lowered his voice. "Last week, I found emails between her and her mother. They were mocking you, planning how to keep you away from Emma's recital. It was cruel, Mom. Deliberately cruel." "I've known for years," I said softly. He flinched. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I tried," I said gently. "But you didn't want to hear it. You always defended her." He ran a hand through his hair, sighing. "I didn't want to see it. It was easier to believe you were overreacting than to admit I'd let this happen." "When did it start?" he asked. "Almost immediately after you were married," I replied. "Small things at first, but after Emma was born it grew worse." David's face fell. 15 years. I've let this go on for 15 years. "You were caught in the middle," I said, though part of me wanted him to truly feel the weight of it. "No," he said firmly. "I made choices. I chose what was convenient instead of what was right." His honesty stunned me. This was not the conflict-avoidant man I'd known. "What changed?" I asked quietly. He gave a small, sad smile. "You did. When you stopped accepting the way things were, when you started setting boundaries, it forced me to look at everything differently. Then Emma came home from your ice cream date, talking about what a great teacher you were. Rebecca snapped at her, said you were exaggerating, and something just clicked. I realized I didn't even recognize my own life anymore." I reached across the table and took his hand. "What are you going to do now?" He squeezed mine. "I've started therapy, just for me. I need to understand how I became someone who'd let my mother be treated this way, and I've told Rebecca that things have to change." For the first time in years, I saw the boy I'd raised, the one with integrity, kindness, and courage, looking back at me. And as I held his hand, I knew the lesson I'd wanted to teach Rebecca had never really been about her. It had been about reminding my son who he truly was. "She didn't take it well," David admitted. "I can imagine," I said softly. Rebecca had controlled the story for so long. Losing that control was bound to shake her. "The kids miss you," he continued. "I miss you. I want you back in our lives. Really, in our lives." "I want that too," I told him, "but I can't go back to how things were." "I know," he said quietly. "I don't expect you to, I just... He hesitated, voice cracking. I need time to fix this. To fix myself. When we stood to leave, he pulled me into a tight hug. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. Driving home, my emotions twisted together. Hope, pain, vindication, and a deep concern for my son, finally seeing the truth but now facing the storm that would follow. I had wanted David to open his eyes, but now that he had, the path forward was uncertain. Rebecca wouldn't surrender control easily. The confrontation I'd spent years avoiding might soon arrive, but for the first time, I wouldn't be facing it alone. The weeks that followed were tense. Rebecca stopped replying to my texts about the children. David would schedule visits, then call at the last minute to reschedule. Something was happening in their home, a quiet battle, unseen but palpable. Give it time, Dr. Mitchell reminded me during one of our sessions. Families resist change. You've disrupted a long pattern. Let the dust settle before you draw conclusions. I tried to be patient. Then, in late May, an envelope arrived, thick cream paper, my name written in David's handwriting. Emma's spring piano recital. My heart swelled. It wasn't just an invitation, it was an olive branch. That afternoon, I took extra care getting ready. I chose a soft blue dress I hadn't worn in years and added a touch of lipstick. As I looked in the mirror, I hardly recognized the woman staring back. Her posture was straighter, her eyes clear and steady. This was a woman who had fought to reclaim her place. The school auditorium was already filling when I arrived. David waved me over, saving a seat near the front. She had a migraine, he explained when I asked about Rebecca. Noah's with her sister tonight. There was something almost light in his voice. Relief, maybe. Emma's nervous, he added. She'll be thrilled you're here. When Emma walked onto the stage, her eyes scanned the crowd nervously until she spotted us. Her whole face lit up. She played beautifully, her small fingers moving with confidence and grace. For the first time in years, I saw joy unshadowed by tension. After the recital, while we waited in the lobby, a woman approached us. Mr. Wilson, she said warmly, then smiled at me. And you must be Martha. I've heard so much about you. It was Emma's piano teacher, Ms. Chen. Emma talks about you all the time, she continued. She says you've been helping her with her technique. Those exercises for hand positioning have worked wonders. I blinked in confusion. Helping her? Oh yes, Ms. Chen said cheerfully, and thank you for the music books you sent. Those classical adaptations were perfect for her level. David's brow furrowed. What music books? Ms. Chen hesitated. The ones Emma brought last month. She said they were from her grandmother. Just then, Emma came running toward us, glowing from her performance. David hugged her, keeping his tone even. You were amazing, sweetheart. Miss Chen was just telling us about some music books Grandma sent you. Emma froze. Her smile faltered. It's okay, I said gently. I think there's been a little mix-up. I didn't send any books, honey. Her eyes filled. I'm sorry, Grandma. Mom said I couldn't take lessons anymore. They were too expensive. But I love piano. I told Miss Chen the books were from you so I could keep learning. David's expression hardened. Your mother said we couldn't afford lessons? Emma nodded, small and ashamed. We'll talk about this at home, David said quietly. Say goodbye to Grandma and Miss Chen. As Emma hugged me, she whispered, I'm sorry. You have nothing to be sorry for, I told her softly. I'm proud of you. Driving home, my mind raced. Rebecca had told Emma the lessons were too expensive, even as she'd tried to shut down their connection to me. Was it simply another way to control the story? Or something more? The answer came 3 days later. David called. His voice was tired but steady. Mom, there's something you should know, he said. Rebecca's been mismanaging our finances. My heart sank. What do you mean? She told Emma we couldn't afford piano lessons, but that same month she spent thousands on a luxury weekend with her friends. It's a pattern. She restricts spending on things that matter to me or the kids, but never on herself. I listened quietly, not surprised, just saddened. Control like hers rarely stopped at one part of life. "There's more," he said heavily. "Do you remember the college funds we started for the kids? The ones you've been contributing to?" My stomach dropped. "Yes." "Half the money's gone," he said flatly. "She moved it to a personal account." The words hit like a punch. For years, I'd sent checks from my modest teacher's pension. Money meant for Emma and Noah's future. "David, I'm so sorry," I whispered. "Don't be," he said firmly. "I'm the one who should have been paying attention. But I am now, and I'm going to fix it. All of it." 2 weeks later, he called again. "Mom," he said, "would you mind having the kids for the weekend? Rebecca and I need to talk, without them around." "Of course," I said. Those 3 days were pure joy. We baked cookies, built the rocket Noah had loved so much, and spent long evenings playing board games and laughing until our sides hurt. For once, there were no tense silences, no abrupt goodbyes. Just love. Simple, real, and healing. When David arrived to pick them up, he looked different. Lighter, somehow. "Rebecca's moving out for a while," he said quietly. "We're going to try counseling, but I've made it clear. Things have to change for good." I nodded, understanding all that he wasn't saying. And as I watched my son drive away with his children, I realized something profound. After years of silence, manipulation, and pain, truth had finally taken root. And from it, something stronger was beginning to grow.